Canvas, there's two ways to do it, manual or automatic. So if you choose the automatic version, you're going to set a date and time when everyone will get assigned their peer review. I usually make it an hour after an assignment is due. That way, if anybody turned in 10 minutes late, they will still be included. Otherwise, anyone who had not submitted by the day and time that process started will not get assigned a peer review, and then we have to go in and manually give you one. So we will check that as soon as we end this meeting, and we'll make sure everybody who submitted has a peer review.
Yeah.
Okay. Were there a couple of other assignments that have not yet been graded? Because as far as I can tell, I turned in everything and I double checked to make sure they appeared, and they did, but I haven't gotten grades or comments on some of them.
On some of them? Well, I know I have, I just finished a discussion board right before this, and I have one more that I'm working through. I'm going to try to catch up with mine today.
Yeah, I'm not rushing anybody. I just want to make sure I wasn't overlooking something.
Yeah, and I haven't done the cumulative assignments yet. Actually, I was going to talk about that. Should I wait until you guys do the peer review before I grade those? What do you think, Carrie?
I don't know.
Because it's kind of a weird one. It's like, well, what's the point of the peer review if it's already graded?
It is nice to see what other people are doing. It gives you ideas.
So I might wait a couple days on that one. I am looking through them just to make sure everything's looking good, as especially that first module. But I might wait to actually give it a score and give my official feedback, just so that you have a chance to look at other people's assignments, and also they have a chance to comment on yours. So it might be a little bit before you see that. But again, you can go into your grades, and it should show if it's submitted. And if it's submitted, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Any other questions now that you guys are starting to use your sandboxes a little bit more? Any questions we can address?
We're meeting again tomorrow at 7:30. Is that correct, in the evening?
Another evening session. It should already be set up. I think I set it up, and then I'll post an announcement too with the link for it.
Okay.
I think we talked about how to import stuff already, but this is something that probably should be addressed. A lot of you have already made assignments and will probably want to modify those. Make sure that you're not recreating everything, and you might want to take your class that you had last semester and import that into your sandbox. If you need help with that, let us know.
Yeah, and another thing to keep in mind too, as you're starting to set up your Canvas courses, a lot of things you're better off to create in Canvas than to try to embed a Word or a PDF.
Yes.
Right. So if you are, creating a lecture, don't try to embed a Word document if you have it all typed up. Put it into that rich content editor and make it a Canvas page. You're going to be more accessible for students with disabilities, and it's just a better practice, and it will give you a cleaner course. That way you don't have all these cross links going on, every which way. So try to create, if it makes sense for the document, make it a Canvas page. Don't try to make it an embedded Word or PDF if you can help it. Questions? Gary, did we take care of your accessibility questions?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
I'll admit, accessibility is one of the things about teaching online that makes me nervous, because it's the easiest thing that can and has in many cases at other schools led to lawsuits. So do the best you can with it, and when you need help, I think actually Omar, again, Amicvesa is one of our ADA specialists when it comes to design and that sort of thing. So
I think the movie, and I've seen a different one, but it covered the same thing in the Seamweight one, watching how the screen reader works clicked for me. When I saw that, I was like, oh, I get what we're doing now. I get why we're doing it. Because obviously we don't live in that world. I mean, I could not hear when he put it on the setting where he is typically reading. I mean, unless you're doing that day after day, you're never going to get there. But obviously for him, it'd be very important that a page is set up. So make sure you watch that. I think I watched it like 2 or 3 times when I first was getting into it. And yeah, after that, it was just like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. I know exactly what I'm doing. If you're keeping it in the back of your head, you're setting this up for not a visual reader. You're setting this up for a screen reader. It becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, you know, it encompasses, I think this week it like barely touched on like color and things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't get crazy in your courses when it comes to making things attractive and pretty. Focus on high contrast, you know, black ink on a white background, or maybe like a really dark colors like the navy or the blue. But even then, if you're using color to signify something, it can't be the only thing that you're using to signify that, right? So, you know, like on this page, we have one of the headings is dark red, but it's also formatted as a heading, right? So it's got multiple layers of coding there, signifying that is a heading style. So keep that in mind. You know, you can do some things in Canvas that are not ADA compliant. Like if you scroll up a little bit, Caitlin, can we see that the content edit? Click on edit. I'll show one thing. Oh, there it is. If you look at your tools here, if you click on like your font colors, you can use completely inappropriate font colors. Go ahead and make that overview title, like highlight it, and change it to like a pale something. Go to that, yeah, let's see. Now run your accessibility checker and see if it'll catch it. Sometimes it will. So click on the little Vitruvian man.
Where is it?
That's what he is.
Oh, that one there.
There you go. Yeah, see, it picked it up for color. So Canvas lets you do things that it's later going to tell you, oh wait, yeah, that was bad. Don't do that. So just, you know, keep that in mind as you're designing these things. As you're including images, you know, make sure they're
alt texted.
mostly relevant. You know, the occasional decorative image isn't terrible. Just don't have a decorative image on every page. Right?
Yeah. Less is more and is easier for you. Oh, the reason why you shouldn't use underline for emphasis is because usually the underline means that you can click on it and it becomes another link. And obviously if you're colorblind and you're not seeing the difference between this and this blue and the rest of the text, you have no idea that, oh, should I be clicking on that or not? So just be aware, use italics, we're not allowed to use bold, are we?
You can, but again, I think it's one of those, it can't be the only thing you're using to place emphasis there. And this also applies to any PowerPoints that you include. You know, PowerPoint has a lot of lovely design options for you that do not have high contrast. So, you know, keep that. That's the kind of general rule that I follow. Yes, Gary, you can keep bugging me with questions. You know, and here's the thing. I'm not an expert, but I know this ADA compliance makes me more nervous than anything else in Canvas. I know I said that already, but it's totally true. So I am constantly asking questions of people and reading stuff online because I know there are things in particular in my discipline. For example, MLA format is not ADA compliant.
Wait, really?
So one of the things of ADA compliance, and you'll notice this in Canvas, you're only allowed to use one font. right? Times New Roman is not an ADA compliant font. It's got those little tails, right?
I was just thinking about it. And the econ
And it
major,
doesn't
they
like
made us
it.
take business writing. I would say most of what we did in business writing, looking back at it, is a lot more in tune with accessibility. And it just they didn't ever mention that, but it must have led to that's why they told us to write certain ways. And like one of the big things was if you're ever on a computer screen, you always use the sans serif. Just because it's easier to read on a screen, but obviously that also leads into accessibility. Yeah.
Are we supposed to use that Lato or Lato font? Because that's what it seems like everything is written in.
It just has to be sans serif, so it can't have a serif is what makes it easy to read on a book page because it creates that line.
Because it seems like all the assignments are written in that one font, so I've been switching it to that font when I turn my stuff in, because I wasn't sure.
That's not a bad idea. I mean, all of this looks pretty accessible, so if you're just copying this as a default format, that's not a bad way to go about this.
Yeah, Canvas.
What did you said Times New Roman had the tails? What were you talking about?
It's a serif.
Yeah, so when you look at Times New Roman font, like this font on the page right now that you guys can see is very crisp and it doesn't have tails. If you look at a Times New Roman font, like the capital I, for example, it's got the extra little bits that make it more difficult.
I can show you guys.
As an English major, it's my preferred font, which I need to work on that. I need to work on shifting over.
Well, again, I don't think it's bad, and I've been told that if you're reading an actual piece of paper, having that line makes it so that you can trace better. I mean, kids who have a really hard time reading, you usually put the piece of paper there and then have them bring it down, which creates a natural serif. Where are the font options on here?
You don't have font options in Canvas.
They don't. That did not occur to me.
You have one font. And if you copy something from Word into Canvas and had a different font, it will convert it to the Canvas font.
What font does it use? What's it called?
You know, I'm not sure. I think is it a Calibri?
Probably.
Not Arial, that I know.
That looks like Calibri, yeah. So if you look at what we have,
like MLA2, a citation includes a URL.
If you look at all these different fonts on Word, can you guys see Word right now? No, you guys can't. Hold on.
We didn't follow you.
Yeah, I set it so that it's only on the Canvas page, which works in a lot of great ways because then if you bring anything else up. Okay, so if you go into here, you'll have things like Mongolia Balti. Hello there. I can type today. Do you see how it's creating more of a natural line? That's the serif. Same thing with Times New Romans. These are both serif fonts. Anything that says sans serif, but Arial is also a great example of a sans serif. There's no natural line that occurs underneath it, and that's the difference between the accessible and non-accessible.
Google, if you have a student who uses Google, it's going to be Arial every time, unless you tell them otherwise. So what students submit, you will see their original font selection, whatever they chose on their assignment. But whatever you do in Canvas will be converted. That's usually one of the tells that a student is a Google user. Their font.
It drives me crazy when they submit papers like that, but maybe I should start reevaluating.
The other one that I've noticed a lot of students doing lately, and I don't know why, instead of using left alignment, they're using justified. And let me tell you, I don't notice it right away, but usually about a paragraph in, I'm like, why is this so hard to read? It's the spacing. You know, your eyes get used to tracking in that regular spacing pattern. And when a student